Good evening and welcome to another Dakota County virtual town hall. We have a very large lineup of county staff, and I'm joined with County Commissioner Joe Atkins today to give a couple updates on a number of things that are going to be going on and during these very interesting times. So I wanted to just welcome all of you. We're going to start very briefly with a long list of some topics that we have, as well as just want to make you all aware. If you do have any questions, you can certainly go and type them into our Facebook post that's been sharing on not only both Commissioner Atkins and my commissioner pages, but also is being shared on the Dakota County government Facebook page. So we certainly will welcome opportunities for questions and answers throughout the evening. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Commissioner Joe Atkins.
Easier said than done.
I guess so. Welcome.
All right, I'm back. Sorry, folks. This is what happens when you have lawyers trying to do technological things. Mike, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for tuning in. My job tonight is to do my best to serve as moderator. And as you can tell, I'm certainly not the person running the technology, but we greatly appreciate Nathan Hansen, Mary Beth Schubert, Scott Wente, who've helped us put this meeting together. We're joined by a great lineup this evening of our staff to talk about some key issues, as well as Chair Slavik and myself. We'll start off with a discussion of the latest information about COVID-19, then transition into what's obviously been a very hot topic today, and that is Governor Walz's latest order with respect to stay at home, which he's now changed to a Stay Safe Minnesota. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about protecting groundwater here in Dakota County. You may recall that there was a request to ship up to $500 million gallons of groundwater off to Arizona. And we'll talk about methods that we're taking to seek to prevent that from occurring. And finally, we'll talk about what's been happening in our parks and the high number of visitors that we're seeing in our parks and trails. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine Lees from our Public Health Department, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the latest data that we've got with respect to COVID-19. Christine?
I wanted to start out tonight with sharing with all of you some of the efforts that our Public Health Department has been focusing on right now in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our department is working very hard on this, as you can imagine, and want to get out the information to you on what is happening. Our case numbers have been increasing here in Dakota County, especially since the beginning of May. Prior to that, we were averaging about 5 to 10 cases a day, and now we're around 40 to 50 cases a day. That is primarily driven by increased testing and is matching what is happening at the state level. And we do anticipate that the number of cases will continue to increase as the amount of testing becomes more widely available. And I wanted to share with you a feature that we've added to our website. We really wanted to focus on making as much data available to everyone as soon as we can. And so we have a live dashboard now that is on our external website that you can access. And it's accessible both by mobile phones as well as internet-based. And it is full of a lot of information, and it's updated every day, Monday through Friday, with up-to-date information. So you can see here, there's the number of confirmed cases. We have data on our median ages of cases, number hospitalized, our deceased cases. There's also data in here by age, ethnicity, gender, and race. And so I really encourage you to visit this dashboard so that you can get all the information that you're looking for regarding to what we're seeing here in Dakota County. And the other thing that our Dakota County Public Health Department has been working hard on is doing case investigations. And so you hear a lot about case investigations and contact tracing that is happening. And on my next slide, I have just a little bit about what that process looks like. I don't know if they're able to advance the next slide. There it is. So case investigations and contact tracing had been being done by the State Health Department for the beginning period of this outbreak. And local public health has requested to take a lead on that role. And we were trained in a few weeks ago and have started doing our own investigations here. And so Cases are reported to the Minnesota Department of Health. Generally, that's through laboratory reporting. And our state health department is utilizing a system called REDCap, which is a web-based epidemiology platform. And so all of us are using the same platform. And then they report it to us through a queue in there. And that's how we get our daily information for what we can follow up on. And the next slide, I have just a picture for you of a couple of our public health workers that are working very, very hard on our case investigations. We were at a training, as I mentioned, at MDH with a number of other counties. And the picture on the left is one of our operations centers at our Western Service Center building. We are still hosting a number of daily meetings, planning and doing case investigations tracing in the office, as well as remotely. And this is it's a 7-day operation. And so we have staff that are working 7 days a week on investigations to try and keep as up to date as we possibly can. And the last thing that I just wanted to share with everyone this evening is that we know that there are so many needs in our community that are happening right now around this outbreak and this pandemic. And so we have a couple of tools I want to make sure you all know that are out there for you to utilize. The first one is we do have a public health hotline. That number is there, 952-891-7834. We have public health nurses answering this line. And so please feel free to call in with your questions about COVID, but also you can call into this line if you have other questions about resources. It could be anything from how to access food donations, what's happening with mask drives, all kinds of other resources. We also have been expanding everyday resources on our website for families and for our community around a number of the needs that we're seeing. And so there's actually a GIS map that's available that is updated, that has all the free lunches that are being made available throughout our county. We're translating materials in multiple languages, and we have a lot of information resource lists available to you. So please go there if you're looking for specific information, or call our hotline and we can work to connect you with the resource need that you have. And those are the main updates that I wanted to share tonight.
Christine, thank you so much. Joe Atkins again, and thank you for your everybody in your corner of the county on the tremendous service that you've been in the last few months. Thank you also to folks at home who are watching this. We appreciate your patience with our technical issues. We think we've got them sorted out. With that, we're going to turn to Leah Roberts. Leah, you're going to share a little bit, I believe, in Spanish as well, since this COVID has been particularly hard hitting with the Hispanic community.
Yes. So, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Leah, enfermera del Condado de Dakota. Nuestro departamento está respondiendo a la pandemia de COVID-19 y tenemos varios recursos disponibles en español. Tenemos una línea telefónica para hacer sus preguntas sobre COVID-19 y estamos respondiendo a preguntas acerca de información sobre los recursos comunitarios y sobre su salud física y mental. También tenemos una página de internet en español sobre el coronavirus. En el futuro tendremos una plática comunitaria como esta para la comunidad hispana. En este discurso vamos a presentar información sobre el virus y lo que pueden hacer ustedes para protegerse, y responderemos a las preguntas que tengan.
Leah, that was both in Spanish and also I see you've been joined by your dog who's interpreting.
Yeah, I apologize.
For any dogs that are home watching as well. So
Yes.
that's the world that we're in at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Leah. And my 10th grade Spanish would cause me to say something like "Gracias, esta es información importante, más por venir." And with that, we've got already got questions that are coming in. Some came in earlier today, some are coming in online. We're going to take a few of those, and then I think we'll go to the governor's recent announcement. But Sherry asks, Christine, specifically, how many cases are there? How many deaths have there been? And are there any outbreaks in specific locations here in Dakota County?
Sure, yes. Thanks for the question. So today, as of today in Dakota County, we are at 524 cases. And we have had 15 deaths, unfortunately, here in the county. And as far as any outbreaks or hotspots, we have been following with Minnesota Department of Health a couple of different ones in some long-term care and assisted livings, and those are any area where there's congregate settings where people are closely living together is where there can be potential outbreaks. So yeah, and Minnesota Department of Health does have those listed on their website. So if you were interested, the names of all of we have 6 congregate care facilities in Dakota County so far that have had cases or outbreaks. So that information is available to you as well.
Thank you, Christine. Sherry also asked, she packed in a lot of questions into a single, her other question was, what does this cost Dakota County? Mike Slavik, this one might be better for you. Do you have the most recent information with respect to the total costs that have been incurred at the county level?
So as of today, our anticipated costs, and this includes lost revenue as well as some of the overtime for some of our county positions, some of the anticipated staff people who actually have been working county with COVID-related employment staffing costs, as well as one of our largest costs is housing the homeless population within Dakota County. Our number comes in around $15 million by the end of the year is right now where we're estimating those costs would be with what we know today. I think it's important to preface that with, if there's additional outbreaks or if something would come back at even stronger a second time, that those numbers would change. But I think it's important to note that Dakota County has really put an emphasis on taking care of our unsheltered population. And with that, we've run into that we actually had a couple of facilities that were more close-knit and that was not really conducive to the coronavirus. So as a result, we are now putting many of those individuals in hotels. And that's coming to about $160,000 a month, just that to be able to serve that same population.
Thanks, Mike. Christine, there's several questions that have to do with the governor's announcement. There's one that definitely looks like it's got your name on it, and that is Marty R. asks about, are there any promising treatments yet for COVID-19? And I would add any developments with respect to a vaccine or long-term sorts of hope that we can have for addressing this?
Certainly. Yes, those are 2 pieces that we are absolutely looking forward to having in our tool belt here, both treatment and vaccine. As far as treatment goes, we don't have anything yet that we know is working across the board. There's a couple of antivirals that are currently being tested. And so there is some hope that those might ease symptoms. That would be especially important for some of the individuals who are the sickest. So there are some promising things on the horizon. As far as the vaccine, that is looking further out. So unfortunately, the vaccine for this is very difficult. And so it's obviously being worked on very hard, but we're looking at the regional projections, which are 18 months out. So we're at least a year away, if not longer.
So more on a short-term basis, it's trying to find effective treatments rather than hope for a vaccine in the near term. And then Bill indicates, he says, I heard Dakota County's Public Health Department was voted the best local health department in the country. Is this really true? You want to take that one, Christine? I think we all know the answer to that one, but I want to see if you guys earned it.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Bill. Yes, we did get voted that last year, and it was really an honor. And I can tell you, the group of people that work here at Dakota County are really incredible. They are smart, they're professional. There's a lot of experience, good leadership, dedication to the work, and so all of that, I think, fed into that. And we're proud to serve the constituents here in Dakota County.
A very humble answer. Rachel H. asks, what languages are resources available in? That might have been prompted by Leah's, and thank you, Leah, for sharing that hotline and for that up-to-date information in Spanish as well. But Are there resources available in other languages, Christine?
Yes, on our website, we have a section on translated materials, and it's expanding every day. The majority of our materials were first translated into Spanish, and so there's a lot of translated materials. We're also working on a Somali translation for a number of them. If there's specific language needs that you're looking for that we don't have, Minnesota Department of Health and CDC have a lot of languages, that more translation than we have, that we're building that every day.
Okay. Katrina asks, how many outbreaks in Invergrove Heights?
You know, I can't say the exact number of outbreaks in Invergrove Heights. As I mentioned, we do have the number of long-term care assisted congregate living settings, and I don't know the address of all of them off the top of my head, but I can provide the names of those to her if that would be helpful.
Yeah, actually, you know what, for countywide, if you, do you have that that information handy? I know that there is one in Invergrove at a congregate care facility at Inver, I believe it's Inver Glen off Robert Street.
Yeah, I can.
And while you're looking that up, would you also, so we've used the term outbreak. Is there a definition for outbreak? Because all of these, the congregate care, my understanding is any congregate care facility larger than 10 people that's had even a single case, that's being shared now by MDH, the Minnesota Department of Health, publicly. Is that right?
That's correct. So on Minnesota Department of Health's website, they have the list of all of them statewide, and it is defined as any staff or resident that's positive in the facility. So it is a very low threshold for calling it an outbreak. And so I've got the Dakota County ones pulled up. We have Brookdale and West St. Paul, Inverwoods Senior Living, which maybe was the one you're referring to, right. Sanctuary at West St. Paul, South 3 Acres Healthcare Center, the Rivers, and Vista Prairie at River Heights. So those are our current facilities that have had a case, at least one or more.
Okay, and I know it's been reported publicly now. There was what I would term an outbreak. There were 62 cases now at the Southview Care Facility in West St. Paul. And the question was asked, and I'm now missing the name, but the question was asked, does the county have a role? What's being done to assist those folks in that at Southview and their families? Yeah,
the South 3 Acres Center was particularly hard hit, and there's a lot of work going on to help the facility, and the facility is working very hard with state. There's a special task force team actually from Minnesota Department of Health that deploys on site to centers like that when there's a larger number of spread that they're seeing. So Minnesota Department of Health has been on site several times, and we'll continue to work with them. There's testing that's been done of all of the residents now at this point, and testing of all the staff is being worked on right now. And they're doing a special COVID wing. So you'll kind of hear about like a COVID wing where they try and separate people that are positive from people that aren't to really try and stop the spread. So there's a lot of work going on around testing, isolation of cases. And we are following it very closely, working with the facility and Minnesota Department of Health, making sure we're doing everything we can.
Thank you, Christine. I think we'll take one more question from you, and then this won't, please don't leave us, because we're going to come back with some more, but a number of the questions that I've seen are with respect to what the governor announced. And so we're going to put that up here shortly. But one other question also for Katrina, and she asked, how are you planning on helping those with mental health who are struggling with this pandemic and not able to understand what's happening?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the mental health needs of our community is very much on our mind. We know that in particular, the stress and the uncertainty is hard for all of us, but particularly if you're struggling with mental health or underlying illness, that is particularly true. So a couple of things going on around that. We do have a whole team working on that resource here at Dakota County. On our website, we have a whole list of resources around mental health, including how to talk to children, other individuals, but I would also really encourage you to call that hotline that I mentioned before, because we have the ability to connect you with some of our social services staff through that hotline to access some of the mental health resources and talk to you, particularly if there's ones that you or family members, friends need. So please call us. We would really like to try and help connect you to the services or information that would be helpful for you.
Thanks, Christine, and thank you for all the questions that are coming in. There's a number of them that seem to be with respect to the governor's announcement. So I believe that we've got a summary. Mike, you're going to speak to that as well, but I think we had a bit of a slide to try to compress what the governor announced just an hour or so ago with regard to the latest order and letting the stay-at-home order expire on Sunday. Do you want to speak to that, Mike, about kind of what our understanding of the governor's order is and what the impact has been and the plan is here in Dakota County?
Sure. Thank you very much, Joe. You know, for starters, yeah, just an hour ago, when we started this event, we were not actually planning on, we didn't think the governor was going to announce just an hour before what was going on, because I think it's important to note that board members, and probably just like many council members and mayors throughout the county, have been getting a lot of calls on decisions that were made at the governor's level. So just there's been a lot of what can the county do? What can cities do? So I think that making note of what was just announced an hour ago, first thing the governor did is he announced that the stay-at-home order ends on Sunday the 18th, allowing non-critical businesses that can open with social distancing and with a plan for with capacity limits. Did go in and issue a new Stay Safe Minnesota order, which really is a focus on the more vulnerable, the higher risk. Still going and saying don't travel all over the state. Kind of stay close to home. One of the things that was opened with this order being lifted will be that gatherings of friends and family of 10 people or less is something that is not prohibited with the stay-at-home anymore. Still no large groups or sporting events or entertainment with that. And then bars, restaurants, salons can't open, but there is work to go in and open them beginning on June 1st. So that's kind of the first aspect of with that, and what that also will mean on a county side, because of these things in there, that all the county buildings have been closed since the 18th of March. And now we have an opportunity that we're going to start opening up some of those in-person services by appointment, beginning as early as Monday. So, Joe?
Okay, thanks, Mike. And some of these questions, actually, I opened it up earlier today. So some of the questions that we received earlier were along the lines of, if the governor does not open things up a little bit more, would Dakota County pass a resolution to ignore it or order businesses up open on our own? There's comments about with the shutdown in the state of Minnesota has allowed big boxes to stay open, yet shut down small individual stores and Main Street businesses. It sounds, Mike, you made the observation. It sounds like with the governor's order now, we'll see a lot more of the Main Street businesses able to be open, assuming they're able to operate with 50% of the space. And what I took interest in was also it looks like by sometime mid next week that they expect to have the Department of Economic Employment and Economic Development is expecting to have plans in place to allow bars, restaurants, salons, and other businesses open by June. I know that for some that excites people, for others it concerns people, but that's like when we may see restaurants and bars and when some folks may be able to get a haircut as well. There was a question here that came in from, let me scroll down to it here. Oh, that one's, I'm sorry, this one's for Christine. This is what happens when I try to operate too many things at one time. Ryan M. has a question, Mike. Does Dakota County have any plan to assist businesses trying to shift their approach? For example, a location outside with a large amount of outdoor space, guidance for consumers that can help to create safe transactions and build consumer confidence. You may also want to speak about the property tax situation, normally that's due on May 15th.
Sure, thanks, Joe. Well, a couple things. I happen to have the opportunity on weekly calls with a couple different chambers in my district where we have been talking a little bit about how to do a plan and what are the resources that would get it so that the governor and the state of Minnesota would be acceptable for doing business. And a lot of those resources are actually on the state deed site. So some of that, those advice and suggestions on that, I would encourage any business to go there. Additionally, there's a number of communities who are now working on providing some of the resources for potentially those extra things, whether that be personal protection equipment or the plexiglass guards. So there's been some aspects on that with that. Third thing I think I would make point is that there is right now the federal government gave money to the state of Minnesota to pass through to local governments, and we've been waiting for to determine what the state legislature will do with that and how that will look. And I think that the anticipated number will include some things that will support businesses with that. And then lastly, I would say that we have something we did about a month ago now is if you own a property, Dakota County went and waived the property taxes given the situation we're in with COVID-19. We waived the late fee of all property taxes until July 15th. So typically, if you don't make your payment by Friday of this week, May 15th, you would have a late fee beginning on the 16th. And though we're actually having a very good number who are able to still pay their property taxes, we went and did a very liberal version of saying any business, any resident, and whatever it may be, as long as it's not a escrowed property, a utility, or a railroad, if you're having hardship, you are able to hold off on your property taxes for up to 2 months.
Thanks, Mike. We also got a comment from Robert H. I think we're going to see a lot of this affecting our kids in school. Robert's a teacher, says he's seeing it himself. He's wondering if Dakota County is working with local schools. Christine, I might turn back to you, or Mike, I know you can take that question as well, but Christine, is that something that's within an area you're hearing about?
Yeah, from the work that I've been doing, our interactions with schools have been mostly around trying to help them with dealing with COVID-19 in the schools before they closed, and then right now with the ones that are still open and serving some of our essential workers. So I know that there is interactions happening with our schools, but the work that I've been doing hasn't been on that focus. So I might not be the best person, I guess, to speak to all of that.
And I was telling folks that when I have these town hall meetings, the normal ones that I have in person, there's always questions I get where I don't necessarily have the answer at my fingertips, but I can typically find an answer. So, and Robert, I know I'll make sure we get more information, and I know that we're working closely with schools on a variety of issues. So we'll make sure that we get you some additional information. Brandy on Facebook wonders about the DMV and the Department of Vehicle Services in the county and about having driving tests and license renewals. Mike, you want to take a swing at that one?
As I saw that, I was trying to figure out what I could find from the governor's announcement on that. What I can tell you is that from what I'm reading, the DMV driving tests are still not happening. But then the DMVs for tabs, both through the county and through private, have been able to keep up and do tabs for cars. What I don't know about is licenses. I don't know if you've seen anything, Joe, yet on that. I was trying to quickly Google what I could find from governor's announcement, but yeah, I'm sure that communications of the county will be sharing something as soon as we know something, because as you are probably well aware, the county does do driver's licenses and tabs and licenses for various parts of the county.
Yeah, we're certainly as anxious as anybody to see that. That's probably, I don't know if that's the most common question I get, but it's a very frequent question. And there was the last word that I had a few days ago was that at the very soonest it would be May 18th, which is obviously now just around the corner. And hopefully that'll be the date that they're able to stick to in terms of vehicle services and tests and license renewals.
Joe, I would add one other thing, that if the governor says it's okay, Dakota County through our appointment process would be able to start doing licenses. We've put in our protocol on how to be able to do licenses in person sooner than later if it is okay with the state of Minnesota. The other thing goes with passports, and we're waiting on the federal government for that. And as of now, passports are not being issued at the federal level.
Thanks, Mike. And with that, we're going to transition. As we do, I want to reach out to our friends at Town Square Television. Thank you for simulcasting or broadcasting this for us on Channel 19. We appreciate the viewership and the partnership and getting the word out about what's happening at Dakota County. With that, we're going to turn to Valerie Grover, who's going to talk to us a little bit about a recent groundwater moratorium. I'll provide a little background just because between Commissioner Slavik and myself, I think we've probably heard more about this than just about anybody. Last fall, there was an application here in Minnesota that would have shipped up to 500 million gallons of groundwater from Dakota County to southwestern states like Arizona. Would have tapped the deepest aquifer in Dakota County, the deepest aquifer in Minnesota. Fortunately, it was turned down flat by the state of Minnesota. What we found out since then, though, is that there's still plans in the works by this same group of investors based out of state, watertrain.us, if you want to look it up while we're chatting here, to still ship vast amounts of water from somewhere in Dakota County from a different aquifer with and hopefully, or at least their theory is that there's an exception to the rule that would prohibit that and make the state unable to turn it down. So recently, Dakota County, concerned about that action, took our own action with respect to a moratorium. Valerie's going to speak about that moratorium, but with concerns of our own, long-term concerns about water depletion and water quantity issues here in Dakota County, we certainly want to be protective of that resource, especially with 90% of our residents here in Dakota County relying on it for their drinking water. With that, Valerie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about what the moratorium is, what it does, and what it doesn't do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. I think we're going to have some slides that are going to come up here, but I'm Valerie Grover. I'm the Groundwater Protection Unit Supervisor here at Dakota County. And I think first we're just going to give you a little bit of background of, how does a well impact the surrounding groundwater? So why is this, ultimately important? So you can see here, well impacts the area depending on a couple different things. One, how deep the well is, so how deep in the aquifer it goes, as well as how much water it's going to pump from the ground. So you can think of this as gallons per minute or gallons per year, but basically that's the water that's going to be drawn up from the ground. So you can see in this case, as the well starts to pump, it actually starts to bring down the water table. So it lowers the water table, lowers the water level, and basically kind of in sciencey terms creates like this cone of depression where it draws up this water. So in this case, you can see it's affecting the water table, drawing that down. And then if it's close enough to a stream and pull enough water, it can also potentially pull enough water to decrease the level in the stream, the river, or other surface water bodies. So you can imagine here, this is just one well. If you have multiple wells that use a lot of water, have high capacity, you're going to have a lot of drawdown in one area of the county. And then if you have a well in that area and you have the shallowest well, you're going to be the first one that's going to run out of water. So as you can see here on the picture on the right-hand side, this is actually a map. The data is from the Metropolitan Council, and this is what they project the drawdown is going to look like in about 20 years. So you can see those that are darker color, especially in the dark browns to reds, those are going to have the highest impact, or the highest drawdown in the next 20 years. So the highest populations, highest water usage, you can see Lakeville, Apple Valley, Egan, Inver Grove. And then those that are in red are potentially up to 50% depletion. Next slide. So when it comes to water regulations in Minnesota, it is pretty complicated. And in fact, if you're going to submit a permit for a well in Minnesota, you potentially could have to work up with 2 agencies for the permit. So depending on the amount of water that you're going to use. So for example, if you are planning to use more than 10,000 gallons per day or 1 million gallons per year, that's the threshold that you have to apply for a Department of Natural Resource water appropriation permit. So the first step is you actually go through this preliminary process. You submit a well construction assessment. request, and DNR looks at it and says, are we likely to approve it or not approve it? And so this is really where, as Commissioner Atkins was saying, that it kind of got denied or kind of flat said no. So it actually got told at this point, before they even started to look at the construction of it, that the DNR in no case would approve it. So at least gives the company or the person, before they drill the well, the risk of, are they going to approve or not approve my water appropriation permit? The next step then, once they hear back from DNR, they would then set a permit application for construction, and it either goes through the Department of Health, or in the case for Dakota County, we have a delegated authority from Department of Health for pretty much most wells, with the exception of municipal or public wells. So at this case, we would review the permit construction, make sure it's constructed properly. And then once it's constructed, they would then go back to the Department of Natural Resource to actually get the permit to use the water. Next slide. So since we have a delegation agreement with the Department of Health, this allows us to regulate the construction, reconstruction of wells. So we administer this program through what's called the Ordinance 114, our Well and Water Supply Management Ordinance. This establishes all the standards for regulation of the construction, reconstruction. If you have to seal a well, so for example, you're no longer using it, we want to seal it, because that way, if it's open, it can contaminate the aquifer again. And we do this for pretty much most of the wells, as you can see here, with the exception again of a municipal well. And as you can see the picture on the right hand side, just in case you've never seen a well before or wondering what one looks like, most private wells look something like this. So even as you're walking around Lebanon Hills, you might see something in the ground like this. That's the water well that self-supplies those washing facilities and bathrooms in the area. Next slide. So although we at the county, we don't do water appropriation permits, so we can't say whether or not they can use the water or not if it's over a certain threshold. That has to go through the Department of Natural Resources. We do have interim zoning authority, and then we do have the ability to regulate most wells, with the exception of the municipal wells. So we were able to work with our county attorney's office to establish through those processes a 365-day moratorium for well construction of specific types of industrial wells. So unfortunately, you're probably wondering, why can't we just say we're not going to allow any kind of permits for somebody that's going to export water from Dakota County? I'm not a lawyer, but listening to the lawyers, we don't really have that ability just to say, no, if you're going to export our water, we're not going to permit it. So we worked with our county's attorney's office to really think carefully about how to construct a moratorium that minimizes impacts to our residents and businesses, but really tries to protect our water, make sure it's groundwater sustainable for the future. Well, in the interim, that we can figure out what is the best way to make sure our groundwater is protected in the long term, whether that's at the county level, the city township level, or potentially even working with the state to have stronger statutes and rules at the state level. So as you can see here, our 1-year moratorium, it does prohibit the construction, installation, and permitting of new wells that meet that threshold, which is the 10,000 gallons per day or 1 million gallons per year, which they would have to apply for a DNR permit appropriation. And we're only looking at 3 types of uses or categories, which are commercial, institutional. And this is actually the category that was previously applied under by Progressive Rail when they submitted their application back in October timeframe. And then the other 2 are other and agricultural food processing. But the moratorium does not apply to existing wells that they need to replace an existing well. And just to explain kind of what those water use types are, if you go to the next slide, this information is actually publicly available through the DNR website. They have a water permitting and reporting system called IMPAR. So if you are interested in seeing how much water is used by any company in Dakota County, you can actually go in there and you can pull the data if they have to apply for a permit. So it has to meet that threshold again. And these are all the types of water uses and types that they can apply under to use that water. So you can see there's several different categories, and we're really not impacting the majority of these categories at all. So you can see for farmers, agriculture, there's no impact at all. So agriculture, nursery, orchard, pasture irrigation, those don't apply under the uses. The three are the agriculture food processing, and as you can see, that's one of the industrial types of processing wells. So some examples in Dakota County would be Pepsi and Coca-Cola, where you use water to actually process it to create a food item, potentially. And then the other ones are water supply. So specifically, the water supply would be the commercial, institutional. So these might be larger businesses. So for example, in Dakota County, right now we have the Minnesota Department of Veteran Affairs and University of Minnesota have a couple of buildings that fall under that. But again, it doesn't apply to private wells, municipal wells. So in the long run, ideally, we've kind of targeted it to prevent the exportation in the meantime, while not impacting our residences and businesses while we figure out how to sustain this long term. I think that's it. Any questions?
Well, my dog apparently has one, Val. So Leah's dog and my dog apparently want to chat. By the way, I apologize for that. But I also apologize to those. I'm as moderator trying to take questions via Facebook, via email, and then I've got some that were sent to me earlier today as well. So I appreciate everyone's patience as I seek to do this. My normal town meetings, we gather around in a little bit of a circle and we chat, and you can tell one person is talking one at a time, and we just go around in that fashion. So thank you to those that are watching at home. I appreciate your patience. One of the questions, Val, and I'm going to click on it here, that came in earlier today, is from Leah K. or Lee K. It says, please continue to defend Dakota County's water, our right not to let our water be exported to other states. What can residents do to help?
I think just being available, making sure that your voice is heard. One thing that we are also working on in addition to this moratorium is we are developing a groundwater plan. That the idea is that groundwater protection, not only for water quantity and availability, but also for water quality. That plan ideally will be available for public review here by the end of the month. And there's multiple different strategies in there, which includes protecting from water exportation. So we're looking at a couple of different strategies. The moratorium is a short-term one. 1 year, it gives us a little bit more time to figure out, working with our county's attorney office, working with the state, as well as local government units to figure out the best way. So I don't know the best way right now. I think that's why we have the 1 year moratorium to really figure it out.
And I would add to that, thank you, by the way. I would add to that, please feel free, Lee and others, contact your county board members. I think we feel pretty strongly, but I'd urge that you also contact your legislators. There was legislation that was moving through at the state capitol that would have made it much more difficult to export Minnesota's water, let alone Dakota County's water. It got a little sidetracked with the COVID pandemic and the whole legislative process changing. And I don't know if that's going to make it across the finish line this year or not. All the more reason why it's important to have instituted that moratorium that Val talked about, so that we've got that 1 year period to continue looking at it ourselves, demonstrating the sort of harm that it would cause here in Dakota County, but also giving the legislature an opportunity to strengthen their laws to ensure that that this cannot happen. And it, in fact, that I see Richard on Facebook asked us similarly, said, what is the county doing to stop the company water train to remove our natural resources on a permanent basis? And that's exactly what we're doing, Richard, is that we're looking what we can do at the county level. And then we're also working with state legislators with respect to making statewide, because this, the other thing, and another commenter made this same point, is the aquifers don't just magically stop at the county borders. They travel across, in some cases, all the way across state lines. So we want to ensure that that we're looking at solutions that protect our groundwater, not just here in Dakota County, but all around Dakota County. The final point that I would make, and then I also want to look to Commissioner Slavik, and that is, you know, this is not some existential problem or some made up problem. We have water depletion issues, water quantity issues of our own that we anticipate here in Dakota County by 2035 or 2040. Communities like Inver Grove Heights, Egan, Rosemont, Apple Valley, and then Commissioner Slavik, some areas I believe in your district as well. that face serious water depletion issues. So it's not an issue that where there's unlimited water. We've got to be very vigilant and diligent in making sure that that this doesn't happen here in Dakota County. Mike, I'm going to turn it to you. Did you want to share some thoughts with respect to the groundwater issue as well?
Well, thank you, Joe. I think the first thing that I would just emphasize is that this isn't just an issue in the rural areas or for farmers and irrigation. It's not just an issue in the suburbs, but I would say this has been one issue that's really the entire Dakota County Board of Commissioners have rallied around this issue. Though the initial situation was down in my district, down in Randolph Township, the fact of the matter is that as the board is currently working on its groundwater plan, water matters to everybody. So I think that when we were past the moratorium, the public comments we got in there, they were probably majority of them from cities, people who lived in the cities and the suburbs. I think partially because we knew in the rural areas that the board was so strongly opposed to this, but I think in many cases, the rest of the county was just learning that somebody would actually try to do something like this. So, so I would definitely say that. I would also say that to the point in there, I think that the reason why the first plan did not pass was a fluke within state law. And I think it's very important that how we can rally together is really working with the state of Minnesota. And this gives that 1 year to be able to do that. And I thought I would just show that this is actually the moratorium that I signed today, for the 1 year moratorium. So as chair of the board, I was able to sign that today. So that now goes into effect for 365 days where we all can start working together on this. So I think that's all I have.
Thanks so much, Mike. It would have been even cooler if you could sign it right as we're sitting here watching, but it's the next best thing. Thank you for doing that. Well, with that, we're going to turn next to Beth Landau. One of the positive things has been, in spite of all of this, we were already having record turnout, as I understand it, Beth, in our parks, and now all kinds of folks have discovered parks and trails across Dakota County. Do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Commissioner Atkins. It has been really, the word unprecedented is used quite a bit these days, but the use in parks has been unprecedented. And I want to just share a couple of things that we're trying to do to make the experience for visitors and for staff really focused on safety and health. And a couple of things that are foundational in our planning, especially as we're thinking about the reopening of facilities, is that we follow what the state is saying. Obviously, the governor, public health officials, the CDC, the Minnesota Department of Health. A second is we're tracking, we're following, and then we're implementing best practices that we're seeing across the country at a state level, regionally, and locally. We're thinking about how we provide services kind of in the traditional ways that we do it, but also in new and adaptive ways, thinking about credit card transactions differently, thinking about contactless campground interaction, just like other businesses are doing at this point in time. And of course, like everyone is innovating, reinventing, reimagining services. One example, within the first week in March, when we started implementing and closing and canceling programs, our very small outdoor education team transitioned from planning and focusing on summer in-person programs to a whole spring and potentially a partial summer program offerings virtually for schools, for the general public, developing online resources and stay-at-home activities for families. So those are the things that we're really focusing on as we think about providing park services. Next slide. Parks for Wellness has been really important through all of this. Parks provide a connection to the outdoors, to natural spaces, providing opportunities for physical activity, which we know study after study demonstrates reduces stress and improves mental health. During this COVID outbreak, the situation, we know there's high anxiety, high stress, and mental health is a top concern. It's come up a few times tonight. And to that end, parks have really become essential resources in in the health and wellness of our communities. People by the hundreds and thousands are visiting parks as places of refuge, for recharge, for just getting some exercise. And at Dakota County Parks, we take that very seriously, and we want to be responsible and responsive, but really focused on the health and safety of visitors. Next slide. So just a quick snapshot, and this is going to probably adjust as we digest and understand what Governor Walz spoke to tonight. We were anxiously awaiting his direction and words. But as of today, here's what's open: parks, trails, greenways, the Dakota Woods Dog Park down in Empire Township. I mentioned virtual outdoor education programs and a growing resource library of self-guided and stay-at-home activities. Some of our seasonal facilities are open: garden plots, equestrian trails, archery trails, portable toilets, portable restrooms were delivered to park and trailhead areas as of May 1st. So those are in place. A couple things aren't available, unfortunately, or are closed, canceled. Restrooms, picnic shelters, drinking fountains, play areas are currently canceled. Those are things that we are monitoring very, very closely to see how and when it would make sense to open those at some level of service. So we're keeping close eye on that. We know that the public, park visitors are very interested in those services. A couple of public-facing buildings, the Lebanon Hills Visitor Center, the Shars Bluff Gathering Center, those are currently closed through the May 17th, May 18th stay-at-home order. We are in the process of developing reopening plans for those facilities. Our programs and our facility rentals. So facility rentals are typically those larger group gatherings at picnic shelters, at indoor facilities. Those events have been canceled through May 21st. Delayed, unfortunately, is the opening of the Lebanon Hills Campground in Apple Valley. We're looking to the state, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, for guidance on how we might open that facility in a modified way, of course. Next slide. You're all aware of the guidance that as a society we all have now. The stay at home if you're sick, the cough in your, cover your cough, wash your hands. Those are, of course, things that you need to be thinking about as you think about a visit to the parks. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that were maybe a little bit more park specific. And when you're thinking about a visit to a park, even if it's a park that you've been visiting repeatedly over the years, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Parks may be different now. Park services may be different. So it's best if you do a little due diligence on the front end, check out a website, go to a Facebook page, make a phone call to see what you might be expecting and anticipating during your visit to the park. To that end, park services might be limited or more reduced during your visit. As I mentioned, restrooms closed, drinking fountains shut off, visitor centers where maps might be available aren't. So get your water ready, bring your hand sanitizer, upload an app to provide you some mapping, navigational assistance, or print a copy off of a map or some material from home. Just be prepared during your visit. I can't stress the physical and social distancing enough. As I mentioned, and as you've likely seen if you've been visiting parks are really busy right now. And so places where people tend to congregate, parking lots, trailheads, it's hard to do it, but keep your distance. And one of the things that we've really tried to communicate and encourage in that physical distancing is that social isolation is real. And so as you're visiting a park, still keep in mind a wave to someone across the trail, or as you're passing someone on your bike, letting them, with appropriate distancing, but letting them know on your left. Certainly giving way to someone with mobility challenges that you might encounter on a trail. just smiling. Those sorts of things go so far in just, kind of helping spirits and helping people feel part of community. A couple of other things. It's not a bad idea to avoid picnic tables and benches, any kind of surfacing. What I've seen people do, which is fantastic, is picnic dinners and lunches are happening a lot now in the parks. Bring a tablecloth, bring a blanket. I've seen so many families enjoying a picnic dinner on the lawn, which has been really heartwarming, actually. Consider wearing a face mask or some kind of face covering when you're visiting. And the last is consider if you visit a park and you can tell it's crowded, the parking lot's full, you see lots of people, I'd strongly consider you thinking about a return visit, coming back another time, maybe on a morning, or even when the weather's a little marginal. It's still okay to be outside, but you're just going to encounter less people. Otherwise, visit another location that could potentially be less use. In the Dakota County Park System, Spring Lake Park Reserve near Hastings has been a good option for people. Meesville Ravine Park Reserve down in the Meesville area has also been popular, but there are other places at a state level, at a local level to check out. Next slide. So in addition to the people that you'll see in parks and the experiences you'll have in parks, there are a couple of things that are continuing. Some park improvement projects started last fall, and they're continuing into this year. A couple I just wanted to highlight: Whitetail Woods Regional Park, which is south and east of Rosemount. There's a few things happening construction-wise there now. An accessible lake loop is being constructed, which is exciting. There are a couple of two additional camper cabins that will be added to Whitetail Woods. The nature play area will be expanded and provide greater accessibility. The trails will, as we understand, will hopefully be done in a month, and the rest of the construction will be wrapping up later this summer. Down at Lake Billsby Regional Park near Cannon Falls, there's another park improvement project happening there. The campground is being expanded, 26 new campsites and some new utility services is being added. 2 new play areas, one more traditional but nature themed, is going to be adjacent to the picnicking and camping area, while a nature play with some kind of really fun water features is being added near the Lake Billsby Beach, along with some additional lakeside trails. And the third project is connected to the Minnesota River Greenway, and that's a new trailhead under the Cedar Avenue Bridge that will accommodate some parking, trailhead functions, and construction will be starting late summer, early fall on that one. And always, what's really important are the stewardship, maintenance, management, and restoration of the natural resources throughout Dakota County parks. And that work has been going on almost uninterrupted, which has been excellent. Prescribed burns have been happening throughout the prairies in the park system. Garlic mustard, so other invasive species removal, in particular garlic mustard, has been a real priority right now this spring for the next few weeks. So staff are on it. There are a few volunteers that have been helping with that, but that work is happening during this COVID time as well. So lastly, next slide, please. We look forward to seeing you in the parks again. Be prepared. A couple of ways to do that is to check out the Dakota County website, search on parks, look for the Dakota County Parks Forever Wild Facebook page. And the third is Dakota County has a brand new app, and just go to your app store, search Dakota County, and you should find it there. Very helpful resources for mapping and just an idea of what services can be provided. So thank you.
Beth, thank you. That, in fact, I'm not the only one who is saying thank you. We'd like to acknowledge a comment here from Burnsville High School Latino says, parks have been a breath of fresh air and a great escape from the monotony of staying home. Thanks for that comment, for sharing that. I'm sure Beth will share that with her folks too. And there's a couple of questions that came in. I think this one is probably for you, Beth, and then we've got a couple that are likely for Mike. The first one is, when will the dog parks open? And I don't know, this comes from Shar. I'm not sure if she's talking about the county's dog park or if, I know that some of the cities have dog parks as well. To the extent you know if the dog parks are open, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you. The Dakota Woods Dog Park, so the dog park that Dakota County Parks operates down in Empire Township is open. It's very busy right now. I would suggest, I think cities are handling dog parks differently. Not everyone's doing the same thing. What I would suggest, and I don't have them all the Dakota County cities in my head. I do have some resources. I can check on it for you. But I would also suggest to just contact, if it's a local city dog park, contact your local city and get some information there, or another county facility.
Thank you, Beth. I'm guessing with the governor's guidance tonight and the stay-at-home order being lifted, that we may see some of the city dog parks more likely to be open as well. And my guess is that this one is relative to the Inver Grove dog park, but we'll look forward to seeing what happens in the next few days. Mike, or Beth, the next question comes from John, who asks, when will the Mississippi River Trail be finished? And then continued with some additional comments about he's kind of tired of coming across trucks and trains and things like that. You want to take that one, Mike?
I will. So I'm in my 8th year on the county board, and we've been talking about this before, that section that we have left of the Mississippi River Greenway, before I was even on the board. So, and we are very close. In fact, right now under contract is some of the design process that we've had some land control issues, which have certainly made it very difficult over the number of years, number of different redesigns, but I believe we are very close. We've come to some agreements with some of the land control issues, and our intent right now, we actually have a bonding request with the state legislature, assuming a bonding bill does happen, to help us with that last connection. And then we'll have a 27+ mile Mississippi River Greenway from Hastings to South St. Paul, and ultimately connecting into the city of St. Paul with the construction coming up very shortly there. So the answer is actually sooner than I think most people were losing some hope, because it is definitely one of the most unsafe parts when you, like I said, you're going through 400 busy trucks and that. So we'll have her designed and land control in 2020, and potentially, if all the money lines up, we'll have construction start this fall.
Great, Mike. Yeah, that's probably one that I've been hearing about as long as I've been in office, even back when I was mayor, is when is that trail going to be done? And Beth, it seems to me that I saw numbers that Mississippi River Greenway is used by somewhere in excess of 200,000 people a year. Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't have the exact number, but it is excess of 200,000. Yeah, it's wow, super popular.
So hopefully, Mike, I'm going to help hold you to your word. Hopefully we'll see the all of that work take place in 2020 with regard to right-of-way acquisition and so forth, and the design being wrapped up, and hopefully we'll have construction then in 2021. There was another question that came in this one's from Larry Beth. I'm old, he says. He emailed this one. Tell me more about restrooms.
Right. That's probably one of our most frequently asked questions. And what we were able to get portable toilets in May 1st. We know that that's not the most desired level of service. What we're looking at closely are the CDC guidelines for providing cleaning and disinfecting public restrooms. We've got that kind of dialed in. We know what that is. What we're waiting for really is bringing on a few more staff, seasonal staff, to be able to support the level of service and cleaning, the increased cleaning that we need to have at those restrooms. But we are looking at how we can provide modern restrooms, running water at some of the key locations sooner rather than later. Hopefully sooner, within the next, few weeks, hopefully. It's staffing dependent.
Thanks, Beth. We appreciate that. I note, by the way, remember when I said earlier when I'm fielding questions that are coming in via Facebook, they're coming in via email. Somebody apparently just texted me too, who's watching on Channel 19 on Town Square. So that's great. And the question is, how will voting occur? Mike, do you want to take that one? I don't know that anybody knows for sure, but we've had some reports from our folks at Dakota County. Do you want to field that one? How voting is most likely to happen?
Yes, voting is, the state, I think it's important to note the state legislature went in a bipartisan fashion, was able to pass an election bill. It did not include full mailed ballots, but it does actually, within some state law, it does support some of the backdoor side of things for people to request the extended no excuse absentee ballot system. So prior to, in 2016, we had in that about 20-25% of all of our voters actually voted by absentee mail ballot, and our anticipation, just based on the growth of that, was even prior to COVID-19, we were figuring that 2020 election was going to be about 40%. Our staff are preparing and still working with our cities and our townships and the state Secretary of State to try to figure out ways, realizing that more and more people, probably far greater than the 40%, will vote by mail for the requested absentee ballots. So what that's going to mean is a little bit more behind the scenes, backdoor things. Once an application or a mail ballot comes in, the verification of that and that process there takes a lot more work for staff to go in and process a ballot that way than somebody going on election day and voting. So the intent is that it's going to be similar to what you've already had, but there'll be a substantially more number of people who will voted by absentee ballot. And with that, if this bill does get signed by the governor, that will also kind of extend a little bit the process for when you could go in and start voting.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. And it's a perfect question. The eternal optimist in me is hopeful that we will have turned a corner with the whole COVID situation, and we'll see lots of folks that'll be able to vote in the old-fashioned way, just lining up with me at Emmanuel Lutheran Church and casting our ballot. But it's nice to have alternatives that are available as well. I was reminded that we've had, and let me just get to the data here that was shared. Dakota County is among the leaders in the country this year with in the 2020 census. One of the individuals that's working for the census noted that it's easier now than ever to respond to the 2020 census. You can go online at 2020census.gov. There's a 800 number or 844-330-2020 to do it by phone. And it just how critical it is to federal funding that's available, federal and state funding that are available for schools, for hospitals, for all sorts of things that are critical to Dakota County. And we've got for those of us that are a little competitive, you can go to 2020census.gov and click on response rates to see how well each of the communities is doing. My understanding is that Dakota County at 77% response rate, and the leaders all across the country. I think we were 15th count, and it's great to see that level of participation. We also had a question from Cheryl about has there been any difference in crime in Dakota County during the pandemic? I'm going to field that one because I had the same question the other day. And Mike, if you could help me remember what the sheriff told us, but I asked this very same question of Sheriff Leslie, and he sent me some data afterwards. We've actually seen, if there's any silver lining in what's going on, we've seen double-digit reductions, both in crimes across the country as well as in significant reductions in accident rates. Car accidents, car crashes are down 53%. Most of our areas that we measure our criminal statistics are down at least in double digits. And with the concern being, at least with reports of abuse, we're a little concerned that well, that number is down as well, that may not be fully reflective of situations at home. I know the sheriff expressed, others did as well, some concern about whether that number is fully reflective. But virtually everything, robberies, burglaries, crimes have been dropped dramatically. Mike, is that a fairly accurate reflection of what Sheriff Leslie told us?
It is. In fact, I'm looking at all those statistics right now here, and you're right. Most of them are down roughly 50%. Our jail is only at about a third of the capacity. The jail in Hastings, 240 individuals who are usually in the Hastings jail, and it's about a third of that right now. So 80 to 100 currently at the jail, and we're no longer double bunking, so that would be why some of the numbers are less. But crime is down, and you're also seeing a lot of things which may totally change how we address jails in the future, and the fact that a number of the people who typically law enforcement would just put in jail and have them spend a night or two in jail, right now they're saying it's not worth the risk. Here's your ticket. You'll just have to show up in court. And so you're seeing a lot less people end up in jail, which means, it was only a number of years ago we were looking at spending another $15 million on a jail addition, which maybe we may not have to do, understanding law enforcement a little differently.
Thanks, Mike. Do you want to field this last one here too? I think we'll take one or two more questions. There's one from Jane E. that says, with all this going on, is Dakota County still debt-free?
Yes, we are. Dakota County is still debt-free, and I think that's part of what's helped us in as challenging as these times have been, because of we're still anticipating some federal or state dollars in there. We haven't received a dime of them. Some of the other counties similar to Dakota County across the country and in Minnesota have received millions of dollars to be able to cover some of these gaps, and thus far we are covering it ourselves. And not only are we debt free, but we've had a pretty healthy reserve fund for situations exactly like that. And we're the lowest per capita debt, lowest per capita property levy as well. So.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that being debt free, just no different than one's own household. It gives you an opportunity or an ability to weather a storm a little bit better than other counties or communities that are saddled with significant debt. I think the last number I saw is the average amount among the 7 counties here in the Twin Cities Metro is over $200 million in debt, which means that they're spending multiple millions, probably in the neighborhood of $10 million or so a year, just on the debt service. And that's an amount that Dakota County doesn't have to do. Also helps us keep, as Mike talked about, keep our property tax rates the lowest per capita of any county in Minnesota. Thank you for the question, by the way. And we're going to do our best to try to remain debt free as we go through all of this. With that, we're kind of closing in on our end time, but wanted to take an opportunity to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you again to Nathan and Mary Beth, Scott, and others that helped put the program together. Leah, Christine, Beth, Val, we so appreciate your joining us this evening. Chair Slavik, as always, you're a font of information, and anything you don't know, you've got handy on your screen, it looks like. So it's very helpful to have you here joining us. But especially to those folks at home, please feel free. What I do with all my town meetings, and I'm sure Mike does the same, is that this doesn't mean just because the meeting is coming to an end that you can't continue to communicate with us. My phone number is 438-4430. My email is joe.atkins@co.dakota.mn.us. Call me, email me, and I'm sure the same holds true. I know it does with Mike as well, and I'm going to let him wrap us up here. But we invite your comments, your concerns, or if you need any help accessing services, we're here to try to help, especially during these unprecedented times. Mike, you want to take us to the close?
Thank you very much. And I just want to once again extend the thank you. So many of us have been doing, in the new way of technology, a lot of these town halls virtually instead of in person. And I think a sign of the times that people are starting to stay more engaged. My phone calls, I've been ringing off the hook of residents and various constituents who are calling me on a lot of issues. So I know people are paying attention to what happens at Dakota County. And I just want to extend the thank you to the staff who've been here and the over 2,000 Dakota County employees who serve all the residents and businesses each and every day in the good times and the bad times. So thank you very much for all that they've done there. And I will also close just saying that so people, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me on my phone number, which is 651-438-4427, or my email at mike.slavik@co.dakota.mn.us. So thank you all. Be well and stay safe.